Welcome back. You're watching Newsx and I'm Megha Sharma. This big breaking development, Rostom, which is Russia's state atomic energy corporation, has announced that Russia has started the delivery of the batch of first fuel for Kudankulam Phase 2. Kudankulam Phase 2 is the second unit of the Kudankulam nuclear power plant, which is a joint Indo-Russian project in Tamil Nadu. According to Rostom, 7 flights will be supplying the full core and reserve fuel for Phase 2 called Units 3 and 4. These units would be the first VVER 1000 reactors to run on an 18-month fuel cycle. So that's very interesting. That was perhaps even expected because of this nuclear energy deal that has been signed between India and Russia, and the first consignment is already being delivered as we speak. Coming back to you, Professor Madhav Nalapat, about what are the larger implications of it and how important does a nuclear energy cooperation between India and Russia mean, keeping in mind that there are countries across the globe where India is exploring building nuclear cooperation deals?
Well, the fact is, Megha, that India has not signed the NPT. India has not signed the CTBT. So India, frankly, is outside any of these regimes. But it also the fact is that very heavy sanctions have on occasion been levied on India, including by the United States, on the issue of nuclear power. Somehow there is a perception in some parts of the world that certain countries are deserving of nuclear power and other countries are underclass countries. They don't deserve the privilege of being a nuclear weapon state and a nuclear state. Now, India, I'm happy to say, our own scientists worked very hard in spite of sanctions to create a first-class program of nuclear research, in fact, nuclear weapons, and including a space program. It just shows the wealth of talent in India, and it brings to my mind one very important point where the Russians can certainly benefit from India, and that is, you allow temporary migration of Indian talent into Russia. There's a lot of talent in India, and now there are some problems to their going to United States. Of course, other countries are welcoming them, but the fact is there are problems with the US. I think Russia should welcome Indian scientists and technicians, and not only that, in various other fields as well, because Russia is suffering from an acute demographic problem, an acute manpower problem, and our country is a country where manpower is not a problem. We have a surplus of manpower, and I think if they go to Russia, you can, in on-the-job training, in a few months, they'll be as good as anybody else in operating even the most sophisticated items. So I think migration from India to Russia would be good for both countries because both are friendly countries. The peoples are very close together. Remember from the time of Raj Kapoor, I mean, Bollywood was a big hit in Russia right from that time. I'm talking about the 1950s. So I think migration from India to Russia would be a very good idea. And secondly, again, there should not be any contradiction between the India and the US and India and Russia. In fact, the US should try and build an alliance between India, Russia, and itself. But the fact of the matter is that the first Cold War was won by the US largely because China jumped on its side against the then Soviet Union, against the Russians, frankly. And today, if India, Russia, and the US come together, they'll be an absolutely impregnable force. No other force on earth can defeat them, which basically means that they're not going to dare to go to war. So you're going to see peace if you have a relationship and a close partnership between India, Russia, and the US. So I'd like to say, Megha, there's no contradiction at all between the US and Russia. In fact, there should be no contradiction between the US and Russia. These contradictions have been introduced, I don't know how and I don't know why, but it's certainly in the US interest to have good relations with Russia. It's in the Russian interest to have good relations with the US. And I'm sure President Putin would be very warmly responding if President Trump were to do what he did and what he suggested he would do when he was a candidate. When he offered an olive branch to him.
Okay, all right.
That
General Dhruv Katoch, keeping in mind about, it is quite indicative because we saw the Rostom, the State Atomic Energy Corporation of Russia, its head is also in India. We also see Roscosmos, which is the Russian space agency's director, is also over here. And there is very close cooperation in both these arenas between Russia and India. Do you think there could be a possibility of more such announcements in the field of space, or documents being signed in the field of space between Moscow and Delhi?
Yes, I think so. Most certainly, because nuclear, of course, is one issue where the Russians are now coming in for stage 2 of the Kudankulam power plant. But here also we must remember in 2011 there were protests launched by India against they wanted the closure of this plant, and these are all instigated by certain Western agencies. So this time I don't think anything of that nature will happen, and we will go ahead with the upgradation of the plant. As in space, I think there is scope for a great deal of cooperation, especially because India is also a major space power now. It is not simply that India has got nothing to offer. India has got a great deal to offer in space with our own capacities, our capabilities, and our scientific manpower. So I'm quite certain that hopefully even tomorrow there may be some announcement on the space sector besides other defense deals which may actually come up. Mega.
Right, right. I do want to point this out that, just on the eve of President Putin's arrival in India, there was quite the commotion that had been created. There were the ambassadors of United Kingdom, Germany and France, which came out with an opinion piece targeting Russia, targeting President Putin and blaming the country for the war against Ukraine. And of course, a day later, there was the Russian ambassador to India, Denis Alipov, who gave a counter by way of another opinion piece. But what in the Ministry of External Affairs in India came up and said in a comment when asked about their reaction was that it was highly unusual and unacceptable for these envoys to come together and make an opinion such as this. Do you think that at this point of time is a narrative that Russia is also trying to build, that it is Europe that is stopping Russia and US to strike a deal to pause the war or end it completely? And what role could India play over here now that the Russian president is here?
I think it's very immature to think, as perhaps some people in Europe think, that supposedly because of Prime Minister Modi's relationship with President Putin and India's long-standing relationship with Russia, somehow Prime Minister Modi can influence President Putin to stop the war. This is such an infantile opinion, and it really rubs out and erases so much complexity about the Ukraine conflict and its long-standing history between NATO and Russia, that it is truly laughable. I do think that this article and exchange of articles that happened in Indian newspaper really broke a lot of protocol. This is not how countries are supposed to behave and envoys are supposed to behave in a third country. It is not right for our media to be used for a mudslinging match between, sets of foreign countries. This sets a very bad precedence. I think the only reason the MEA did not issue a démarche is because we are already, as you know, we are looking to sign a big trade deal with the Europeans. There's a lot of action happening there. So we are, working with patience. But I think the MEA is right in pointing out that this is really wrong and this completely breaks all protocol. And again, this idea that Prime Minister Modi can sort of whisper, the right things to President Putin to end the war is quite a ridiculous thing. In fact, if the Europeans are serious about ending the war, they should really try and influence the situation on the ground and thrash out the peace deal that is already being worked upon with the help of the United States. That's the only way some sort of peace would come. Trying to put pressure on India is quite ridiculous, and what has happened because of this is President Putin has sort of ties between India, Russia, and indeed even with China has only grown. This is exactly the reverse of what the West, and especially America, wants or needs. So this is a complex game. I'm not sure why European foreign policy, always reacts in this infantile manner. But I do think there is a lot that India and Russia can work together on, including, of course, somebody mentioned space, a very vital sector. Professor Nalapat mentioned movement of people, very, very critical, especially if we can get an assurance that our people will not be used as soldiers in the war. All of this, no doubt, will be discussed
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Right, absolutely. And General Dhruv Katoch, when we talk about India-Russia relations, when we talk about India-Russia cooperation, we have to speak about defense. And while there will not be, of course, any of those deals that are going to be signed, any documents that are going to be signed in the presence of both the leaders, we know that the defense minister of Russia is here, and he's already had a meeting with the Raksha Mantri of India, Rajnath Singh. And a lot of things are on the anvil. I mean, it is being talked about. I don't know where the progress stands at this time, but we're talking about the S-500s, the newer version of the S-400 defense systems. We're talking about the Sukhoi 57s, whether there is going to be transfer of technology, joint production of these stealth fighter jets between India and Russia in terms of a cooperation, in terms of a deal if that is signed. We already know that, there has already been a green signal given to that $100 billion S-400 missiles that India is looking to purchase from Russia after the very successful utilization of the S-400s, the defense systems in Operation Sindoor against Pakistan. So while the heads of governments may not come out and make statements on these lines, of course there are murmurs and discussions that are happening in full stead, and we cannot discount the fact that the defense minister himself is over here to hold those talks.
Very frankly, I think there is going to be an announcement on defense deals. This is a there are many important components of the visit of President Putin, but this defense is also a very important component of that. And basically, there are two issues. One is air defense systems, and the second is fighter aircraft. Now, the Prime Minister of India had announced much earlier when he spoke of Sudarshan Chakra, and he said that within the next few years, we want to give a complete coverage and air defense coverage, not just to specific areas, but to the whole of India. Now, to do that, you would require the S-500. That is one point. So I think there will be some talk on S-500. And as far as the S-400 is concerned, the two additional regiments which have to come, I think that deal will be signed too. If not tomorrow, then at some point of time it's going to be signed. But the agreement in principle will be given. So that will take care of the air defense requirement. And India will have that Sudarshan Chakra which we so desired to cover every bit of the mother country. On the fighter jets, the issue is slightly different. We are making the AMCA, but the AMCA is still a long, quite some distance away. Now, to cover the immediate gap, for the MiGs, it was filled by the LCA, the Tejas. But for the medium combat aircraft which we require, there are two things which we need. One is we have already got some Sukhoi 30s, but that number has to be made up. Now, we have made up partially the requirement of our Air Force with the Rafales. I think there may be a requirement of getting 2 more squadrons of Rafale and then looking into purchases of the Sukhoi 57. 4 to 6 squadrons or even more of the Sukhoi 57, which Russia, I believe, is prepared to give. Now, this, in my view, if it comes about, it'll come about in a phased manner that, one, there will be a direct purchase. Secondly, there'll be a certain quantum which are going to be made in India, and the third will be the TOT. The third component, I think, is going to be very important. That TOT component, because if we get that technology, then it'll give a boost to the AMCA. What we are going to do now is not going to be at the expense of AMCA. It is going to be to actually support the AMCA program also, and that is where the TOT comes in. I'm not sure how far it will go on the TOT, both with Rafale and with Russia, but time will tell. But I think that is going to be the track in which India and the Indian Air Force is going to take. Megha.
All right, those are all interesting aspects to the visit of President Putin, and of course he comes with his delegates, 7 ministers, a number of business leaders who are part of that delegation. I thank all of you for joining me, and I hope to see you tomorrow, because tomorrow is the big day. It is the main day. President Putin starts off his engagements 11 a.m. onwards. Of course, there is the ceremonial welcome that he will receive at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and then of course he will be headed to the Hyderabad House. The bilateral meeting happens between both leaders. President Putin will complete all his engagements and leave from India at 9 p.m. tomorrow. So stay tuned for catching all that action only on Newsx. In fact, actually, let's take a look at some exclusive conversations that we have had with some of these Russian nationals, these dignitaries who have come down to India alongside President Putin with his delegation. I have right now with me Kirill Kuzentov. He is the actor of the film August. Thank you very much, first of all, for joining me, and please do us help put in perspective President Putin's visit, and how important is this visit for both India and Russia?
Скажите, пожалуйста, вот сейчас идет визит Владимира Владимировича Путина в Индию. С вашей точки зрения, насколько это важно для России и Индии, для наших взаимоотношений?
Это очень важно, потому что у нас хорошие дружественные отношения с Индией, и визит президента как раз это и доказывает.
This is really, really important for us because we have a quite warm and strong relationships with India, and this meeting between Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin and Modi proves it.
И очень хорошо, что это совпало с фестивалем российского кино в Индии.
This is really great that it's Russian Film Festival goes in parallel with such a huge meeting.
Потому что кино является универсальным языком, который объединяет людей со всех континентов.
Because cinema is a unique language which combines all people from all over the globe.
How do you see the cultural collaborations between India and Russia, particularly in cinema, complementing the broader diplomatic engagement that is taking place between India and Russia by way of the heads of governments that are meeting today?
Как вы видите взаимодействие именно в киноиндустрии, которое будет сопровождаться, взаимодействие киноиндустрии, которое идет в параллели сейчас с этим визитом? Как вы видите перспективу именно кино?
Отвечу как актер.
Скажу как актер. I will tell as an actor.
Что совместные проекты индийских и российских киностудий это имеет очень большой потенциал.
I believe that co-production projects between Russia and India have huge potential.
В особенности в таких жанрах, как танцевальное и музыкальное кино.
Especially in dance movie or music movie.
Потому что Индия, не боюсь этого слова, является мировым амбассадором этих жанров.
Because India is really global, worldwide ambassador of such genres.
И мне, как актеру, было бы крайне интересно поучаствовать в таких проектах.
I, as an actor, would love to join such projects.
How do you envision India and Russia and Serbia expanding their cultural partnership over the next 5 years?
Как вы видите развитие взаимоотношений между Россией, Сербией и Индией в ближайшие 5 лет?
Я верю, что те слова, которые сегодня были сказаны на конференции,
I believe that all words which were said here on this conference
превратятся в реальные истории, которые будут сняты на кинопленку.
They will cause the real actions which will be shooted in a movie.
И их увидят не только зрители Индии, России и Сербии.
And not only Russian viewers, Serbian viewers or Indian viewers will watch such a movie.
А их увидит весь мир.
But all the world.
All right, that was Kirill Kuznetsov, who's the Russian actor and has acted in the famous film August. In fact, I'm also being joined right now by Elza Antonova, the General Director of JSC Roskino. Do help us put in perspective President Putin's visit in India and how important is this for both India and Russia partnership?
Первый вопрос. Скажите, пожалуйста, вот визит Владимира Владимировича Путина сейчас, насколько это важно для развития отношений между Россией и Индией?
Добрый день. Конечно, для нас это очень важно. Визит главы нашего государства в Индию, встреча глав Российской Федерации и Индии. И именно к этому приурочены такие значимые события в области культуры и кино.
Of course, this visit is really important for us. Meeting between our two presidents, and we do in parallel such events like Russian Film Festival and this today's event.
Отношения между нашими странами достигли за последние несколько лет необычайно высокого уровня, что подтверждается и очень представительным составом российской делегации сегодня в Индии.
So our relationships now on top. And that's, you can see the huge delegation from Russia here to India. So this is really proof that our relationships.
Для нашей страны являются ключевыми и знаковыми такие события, как первая открытая евразийская кинопремия, как фестиваль российского кино. И прекрасно, что мы имеем возможность представить наши картины в Индии здесь сегодня.
So for us, it's really important that we have such initiative like Open Eurasian Award, Diamond Butterfly, and we are so glad to present here the films and the delegation.
How do you see the cultural collaboration, especially in cinema, complementing the broader diplomatic engagements taking place between India and Russia during this high-level visit, such as this of President Putin to India?
Как вы видите развитие наших двусторонних отношений в кино, которые будут идти в параллельно вот с этим большим отношениями между нашими двумя странами во время этого визита?
В 2017 году мы подписали соглашение о совместном кинопроизводстве, и нам понадобилось несколько лет для того, чтобы уже реализовать яркие совместные официальные копродукционные проекты. В этом году у нас выходит в прокат фильм «Жемчуг».
In 2017, we signed co-production agreement between our two countries, and this is really important. And this year, we see the result of this co-production agreement. The new movie will be released in 2026. It's called Gems.
Начало положено. В следующем году будет запущен производство проект «Smash», и уже ведутся переговоры между нашими кинематографистами о создании новых проектов.
This is just first step, and in the nearest future, there are new projects will come. Such projects as Smash will be shooted nearby.
What are the biggest opportunities that you envisage in the co-production of films between India and Russia and Serbia?
Как вы вообще видите возможности создать фильм между Россией, Сербией и Индией?
Сербия и Индия – наши стратегические партнеры. С обоими государствами у нас есть соглашение о совместном кинопроизводстве. В Индии, как я сказала, в 2017 году подписано подобное соглашение, в Сербии в текущем году. И мы наращиваем, конечно, сотрудничество в этой области. И как раз презентация нашего фильма сербского производства, как называется, «Лесной...»
Earl King.
Лесной царь.
Лесной
царь, да. И презентация нашего фильма «Лесной царь», который получил одну из главных наград открытой евразийской кинопремии, показан был зрителям в Индии, очень тепло встречен. Я думаю, что наши традиционные ценности кинематографа как раз совпадают у всех трех государств.
Yes, this is really important for us, first of all. And Serbia and Russia, Serbia and India, our strategic partners, and especially in cinema. We, as I said, we signed co-production agreement between Russia and India in 2017. This year, we also signed a co-production agreement with Serbia. So, and we are happy to present here also the Serbian movie, which called Earl King, which will be screened in the Russian Film Festival, which already screened here during the Diamond Butterfly event, and we are happy that we think that our co-production projects will be thrive.
How do you envision India and Russia expanding their cultural partnership over the next 5 years?
Как вы видите взаимное проникновение культур России и Индии в ближайшие 5 лет?
Учитывая, что за последние 3 года уровень взаимодействия между Россией и Индией, в том числе в области культуры и кинематографии, достиг небывалых высот, и я думаю, что в будущем наши проекты будут только реализовываться с еще большим успехом, и у нас уже много новых, ранее не опробованных проектов в задумке, которые мы планируем реализовать в 2026 году.
So, last 3 years, Russia and India has improved and increased collaboration, and it's really now on top, I guess. And in the nearest future, in the nearest 3 years, we have some ideas for projects which will be implemented between Russia and India.
Мы надеемся, что на фестивале, крупнейшем кинофестивале Индии ИФИ в следующем году мы сделаем большую программу от Российской Федерации, фокус на Россию.
We hope that next year on IFI, which is going to be on Goa in India, we will present Russia as a country in focus, to have a special section.
Также мы планируем организовать масштабный павильон российских кинопроизводителей в рамках кинорынка «Фильм-базар».
And also we are going to present Russian filmmakers, Russian exporters on Film-Bazaar cinema market, content market.
И, конечно, мы продолжим реализовывать нашу перекрестную систему кинофестивалей и проводить фестивали индийского кино в России в нескольких городах России и, соответственно, фестиваль российского кино в Индии.
And we are going to support and proceed with cross-cultural, festivals in Russia and India. So we will screen Indian movies in Russia, so launching Indian Film Festival in Russia, and we hope to proceed with Russian Film Festival in India.
All right, thank you very much, Elza Antonova, for joining us, speaking to us, and a grand welcome to you to India. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this telecast of Newsx, a special telecast on President Putin, the head of government of Russia, who has arrived in India. Stay tuned tomorrow, starting 7 a.m. onwards. We are continuously live, giving you all the updates on the President's engagement with the Prime Minister. Stay tuned.